My name is Clifton Marsh. I'm 61 years old, 6'2", and for the last 34 years I've built shopping centers, mixed-use developments, and commercial properties across the state of Georgia. I started with a borrowed hard hat and a contractor's license I passed on my second try. Today my company moves somewhere north of 40 million in projects a year. I tell you that not to brag, I tell you that so you understand what kind of man turns around and walks away without a single word. My wife, Renata, says I'm the only man she's ever known who can close a multi-million-dollar deal on a Tuesday and spend Wednesday morning worried about whether the tomato plants in the backyard are getting enough sun. She's not wrong. I wear flannel on weekends. I drive a 09 F-150 with 180,000 miles on it because I genuinely can't see a reason to replace something that still works. I shake hands like I mean it. I look people in the eye. These are the things my father taught me, and I figure they've served me well enough. Renata and I have been married 35 years. She has a voice like warm coffee and a look that can end an argument before the first word is spoken. We built our life together from nothing, a rented house in Marietta, one car between us, and more optimism than sense. We have one daughter, Sabrina. From the very beginning, Sabrina was the kind of child who made strangers stop in grocery stores. Not because she was loud, she was the opposite of loud. She had a stillness to her, a quiet confidence that made adults speak to her like she was older than she was. She got her mother's eyes and her mother's ability to make me feel like I'd said the wrong thing before I'd finished saying it. I mean that with love. Renata uses that power for good. It's just a gift some women carry. My best friend, Dennis Holt, has been telling me for years that I give that girl too much rope. Dennis and I go back to our mid-20s, working the same concrete crew outside Chattanooga, two young men who thought they knew everything and were right about maybe 30% of it. He's been right about most things that matter. I don't always listen. That's my flaw, and I own it fully. When Sabrina called to tell us she was engaged to a man named Marcus, a financial analyst from Alpharetta, Renata cried right there at the kitchen table. Happy tears, the kind that come when a chapter ends and a better one begins. I shook Marcus's hand at dinner 2 weeks later. Firm handshake, quiet guy, the type who talks carefully like each word costs him something. He seemed decent. More importantly, Sabrina seemed happy. That was enough for me. The wedding conversation happened in November over Sunday dinner. Renata and I looked at each other across the table, the way couples do when they've already had the conversation without speaking. We want to cover it, Renata said. All of it. Sabrina blinked. Mom, you don't have to. We want to, I said. That's final. And it was final. Sabrina came back a week later with a budget outline, $127,000. Venue in the North Georgia mountains. Catering. Florals. A cake from that bakery in Buckhead she'd been following on Instagram for 2 years. A live string quartet for the ceremony. I said fine. Renata said fine. We said, send us what you need when you need it. Over the next 9 months, I wired money 14 times. The venue deposit, $18,000. The catering company, $31,000 down. The florist, $12,000. The rehearsal dinner, $8,400. The cake bakery, $3,800 down. And on, like a river finding its course. Every time I asked for a detail, the schedule, the seating arrangements, what time the ceremony started, where we should park, Sabrina would redirect. Marcus's family is coordinating a lot of that. We're still finalizing the timeline. I'll send everything next week, Dad, I promise. Next week never came. The night before the wedding, she texted me at 9:47 p.m. Everything is all set. See you Saturday, Daddy. I love you. I showed that text to Dennis over the phone. He went quiet for a moment. Long enough that I thought the call had dropped. Then he said, Clifton. Something's not right. I know, I said. But I went to sleep in my pressed charcoal suit anyway, hanging on the back of the bedroom door. Because she was my daughter. And you don't stop being someone's father because you have a bad feeling. Saturday came in clean and golden, the way October mornings in Georgia sometimes do, like the air itself decided to be kind. Renata tied my tie in the kitchen, her fingers working slowly, carefully, the way she does things she wants to remember. You look like a man who still believes in good endings, she said. I do, I said. She kissed me on the cheek. She'd been fighting a sinus infection, all week fever, fatigue, the kind of sick that plants itself and refuses to leave. She couldn't make the drive. She'd planned to be there, had picked out her dress 3 months earlier, had been more excited than she let on. But she stood in the kitchen in her robe and watched me go, and I thought she looked proud. The venue was called Ridgemont Estate, a sprawling property in the foothills outside Blue Ridge, Georgia, the kind of place that looked like it was built specifically for days like this. Long driveway lined with white oak trees, stone columns flanking the entrance, a main hall with floor-to-ceiling windows that caught the mountain light in the afternoon and turned it gold. The kind of venue that costs what it costs because nothing about it apologizes for existing. I had wired $41,000 directly to Ridgemont Estate. I parked in the gravel lot and straightened my tie in the rearview mirror. Through the windshield, I could already hear the string quartet warming up inside, faint, beautiful, drifting through the October air like smoke. I walked up the stone steps to the entrance. A young man in a dark suit stood at the door with a clipboard and an earpiece. Early 20s, well-groomed, professional. He looked up and smiled. Good afternoon, sir. Name, please. Clifton Marsh. He looked down at the clipboard. His finger moved slowly down the list. Then it moved back up. Then down again. He looked at the second page. His face did something complicated. Sir, he said, quietly, like he was afraid the words might crack something in the air between us. I'm so sorry. I don't see your name on the guest list. The sentence landed somewhere between my chest and my stomach and just sat there. I looked at the door behind him. I could hear the music clearly now. Vivaldi. I know because Renata plays it in the kitchen on Sunday mornings when she's making biscuits. I understand, I said. He looked relieved. He'd expected something else, anger, confusion, a scene. He got a 61-year-old man in a charcoal suit who simply nodded. I thanked him, turned around, walked back down the driveway lined with oak trees I had paid for, past the stone columns I had paid for, toward a truck that had nothing to apologize for. The wind was moving through the tree line. Inside the hall, someone laughed. A woman's laugh, bright, high, the kind that fills a room. I didn't recognize it. I reached my truck and got in. I set both hands on the steering wheel and I didn't move. 90 seconds. I counted. Then I reached for my phone. I called Linda Forsyth. Linda has been my private banker at First Horizon for 17 years. She answers her cell on weekends because she's the kind of professional who understands that money doesn't keep business hours. She picked up on the second ring. Linda, I said, and my voice was steadier than I expected. I need you to stop every pending payment tied to the wedding account. All of them. A pause. Clifton. I need this done now, Linda. Another pause. Shorter. Give me 10 minutes. It took 7. The Ridgemont Estate balance, $41,000, stopped. The catering company final payment, $28,000, stopped. The florist remaining balance, $9,500, stopped. The bakery final balance, $3,800, stopped. 2 other vendor balances stopped. $82,300. Canceled from a gravel parking lot in the North Georgia mountains while a man with a clipboard stood 40 yards away and tried very hard not to look in my direction. I set the phone on the passenger seat. I started the engine. I drove down the driveway one last time, the tires moving slowly over the gravel I had paid for, past the oak trees I had paid for, past the stone columns I had paid for, and out onto the highway heading south. I called Dennis somewhere outside Jasper. He picked up on the first ring, he always does. Dennis, I said. Talk to me. What happened? They turned me away at the door. My name wasn't on the list. Silence. The kind that has weight. What did you do? He asked. I told him. Another silence. Then a sound that wasn't quite a laugh and wasn't quite something else. Clifton Marsh, he said. Don't. I'm just saying. Dennis. I'm coming over. Give me an hour. I'll be there in 45. He was there in 40. That night was not triumphant. I want to be clear about that, because the story could be told like it was triumphant, and it wasn't. It was heavy in the way that only certain nights are heavy, the nights when you realize something you loved has been quietly changing shape for a long time, and you've just now turned on the light. Renata was upstairs, asleep by 7. Her fever had come back. I sat at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee that went cold. The house was quiet in the particular way houses get when something large has happened and the walls haven't caught up yet. The refrigerator hummed. Outside, wind moved through the backyard, through the tomato plants I'd spent the summer worrying about. Dennis sat across from me, working through a bowl of the chicken soup Renata had made before she got sick. He didn't try to fix anything. He didn't offer a verdict. He just sat there, and that was exactly right. Some friendships are built for the moments that require something beyond words, and Dennis understood those moments instinctively. The phone was face down on the table between us. I knew it would ring. I knew Sabrina would call. I'd been her father for 32 years, and I knew the shape of what was coming. I just didn't know, for the first time, whether I was ready to answer. She called 6 times that night. I didn't answer. The text came at 11:23 p.m. Dad, what did you do? I read it once. Set the phone back down. Monday morning, I called my attorney, Catherine Briggs. Catherine has been with me for 14 years. She has the kind of voice that sounds like she already won the argument before you sat down. I walked her through everything, the payments, the timeline, the door, the cancellations. She listened without interrupting, her pen moving steadily in the background. When I finished, she said, because every payment came from your personal accounts and no contract assigned the funds irrevocably to Sabrina or the vendors through her, you're legally clean. The vendors will pursue her for breach, not you. I exhaled. Then she paused. Were the appetizers already served when the cancellations went through? I stared at the far wall of my home office. I genuinely have no idea, Catherine. She said. I couldn't tell whose side she was on in that moment. I didn't ask. For days after the wedding, I sent Sabrina a text. When you're ready to have an honest conversation, not about what I did, but about what you planned and why, I'm here. She replied 9 days later. She said she hadn't meant to hurt me. She said Marcus's family had concerns. She didn't specify what kind. She said things were complicated. She said she thought it would be easier this way. Easier. I sat with that word for a long time. I turned it over. I thought about every wire transfer, every time I'd pushed the unease aside because she was my daughter and I loved her, and love has a way of making you patient past the point of wisdom. I thought about Renata, upstairs sick on her daughter's wedding day, fever and all, missing the thing she'd been looking forward to for 9 months, and how Sabrina had known that would happen, had planned around it, had calculated that it would be easier. We haven't spoken since October. I don't know what happens next. I genuinely don't. 32 years of being someone's father doesn't come with a chapter for this, and I'm not the kind of man who pretends otherwise. What I know is this. Protecting yourself from being used by someone you love isn't cruelty. It's self-respect. And self-respect, once you let it go, takes a long time to earn back. The week after everything, Renata finally came downstairs. Thursday morning, pale and moving carefully in her old blue housecoat, hair not done. She appeared in the kitchen doorway while I was making eggs and stood there for a moment without speaking. Clifton, she said. I looked up. I want you to know I'm proud of you. I almost made a joke. Something about the eggs. I could feel it forming in my mouth, some deflection, some lightening of the moment. That's what I do when things get too close to the center. But something stopped me. I think it was the way she was standing. Like she'd walked all the way down those stairs to say exactly one thing, and she needed it to land. I know you are, I said. She sat down at the table. I put a plate in front of her, eggs, toast, a little too much butter on the toast, because that's how she likes it when she's been sick. She ate every bite without once mentioning that I'd cooked the eggs longer than she would have. That was the most romantic thing that woman has ever done for me. And I've known her 35 years. The oak trees at Ridgemont Estate are probably gorgeous in November. I've thought about that more than once. The way the leaves must come down slow and red on that long driveway, covering the gravel, settling against the stone columns. Beautiful things, built to outlast the occasions they witness. I paid for those trees. And the music was still playing when I walked away.